Hey everyone, it's me again. I had the idea to do a kind of a midweek blog video that you may have saw in my comments, but I had a better idea. I always used to like watching the director commentaries on the bonus features of the DVDs that we used to get, so I kind of wanted to do something similar like that with pilot commentaries. Instead of making you look at my face, I am going to, play one of the flight videos so you have something better to watch while I just generally talk about whatever comes up. So I have plenty to go and talk about, so let's go ahead and start the video and we'll get right into it.
Frequency 119.65, 044741, 32177. Turkey 177, right back correct.
Okay, so yeah, that's one of the first things I wanted to go over. Like, all the people that I've seen online, YouTube and stuff like that, every one of them have been right-handed and not a southpaw or left-handed. And like when I was still in England, I had a hard time passing my driver's test because over there you have to drive a manual to be able to have an automatic. If you pass the automatic, if you pass your driving test in an automatic, you can't drive a manual over there. So because I'm left-handed and they drive on the right-hand side, my driving always was uncoordinated. I just couldn't get it. But as soon as I came over to America and switched to the left, it all became so much easier. And it's just like that with flying. Like, because the piloting is on the left hand side, it was so much easier. However, everything is kind of weird because I'm ambidextrous. I do everything mostly with my right hand. It's just writing is my preferred hand to use to write with. So the push to talk button is on the left hand side of the yoke. So I've had to experiment on how I get myself coordinated properly. Like, use your left hand to push to talk button and try and write with my right hand. It was okay, but like it wasn't legible. So basically I finally figured out how to use my right hand to use the button and use my main hand to write, and like it was such a mental note to get myself used to doing that. But it took a while, but I got there. But if I ever do, or when I do get my own plane, the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that that little red button is on the right hand side of the yoke instead of the left. But you never really would think of that being an issue, but yeah, it was kind of, it was an annoyance. So yeah, IFR training. I have reached the end of the IFR course, the Jefferson IFR course. It was part 141. So the questions that I had at the start, or things that I was wondering, I'm going to try and answer in this video. The video that you're watching right now is the last flight I did. We went out to do some practice at East Texas and then some more approaches. So the first stage of the IFR is just all about the basics, like time turns, learning to do steep turns under the hood, and just basic maneuvers like that. And then at the end of stage 1, everything after is all about approaches. I know many of you probably got fed up of me posting videos week after week about approaches, but it is exactly that's basically all IFR training is. My first instructor, we were doing IFR flights at night, which I love because I'm an oddball. I love night flying, and all my flying is just perfect at night. If I could have done my check ride for my private pilot at night, I certainly would, and I would do it again for this IFR one. It's just how I am. So so you're gonna get, when you come towards doing it, it's going to be all about IFR training and all about learning to ignore your body signals. Earlier on, I posted one of the key tips for IFR training, and I stand by that still. Like, while you're still doing your while you're still a student pilot, learning to become a pilot, do as many crosswind takeoffs as you can, so you can get used to the feeling of the nose going off to the side and stuff like that. Because when you're in IFR or under the hood, you're not going to see that. You're only going to have to be used to the feeling, and then you have to tell yourself to ignore that feeling, and it's a lot harder to do at first. So it's easy to do that. Like, there's so many little nips and so many little things that you have to keep in mind and to remember. Like, although what I'm saying is true, you're gonna have to get used to the feeling. A good practice is to make sure you never take off unless there's 2,000 feet cloud ceiling or 3 miles visibility and stuff like that. Although you can take off in 0-0, it's not safe because you may not be able to get back down. You can take off in 0-0, but the approach says you have to have visibility at 600. Like, once you come out of the cloud at 600 feet, you have to be able to see the airport environment to be able to land. So if you take off in 0-0, you won't be able to come back to the same airport again. So those are the kind of things that you're going to have to think about, and it's so interesting. Like, IFR training isn't hard. The hardest part of flight training is learning to fly when you're a student pilot at first, but once you've learned to land, everything just adds on to what you've already learned, and it's very interesting. It wasn't a battle like high school. It's just like every single lesson is just rinse and repeat, and basically training your mind to do things over and over again, so it becomes instinct, so you know how to do things without even looking. At first, you are kind of nervous about going under the hood. Like, you always wanted to look at you want to look or peek out from under to look outside, because your mind is telling yourself, that's not right, I want to look out, I want to see what's going on. It's not used to having to look at the instruments. But the fact is, those instruments are going to keep you alive when you're flying in clouds. There is several methods of doing the instrument scan, and that instrument scan, doing that for an hour and having your focus, you're going to be mentally exhausted and tired for a while until you get used to it. There is several methods. You got primary and secondary instruments, and then you got the control and performance method. The primary is like you use the to establish a climb. You use the attitude indicator, you use the airspeed, and your VSI, your primary. And then once you're established, it becomes the airspeed, altitude, and VSI, and then maybe the TC. That we discovered was causing me a little bit problems because there was just a little bit too much for me to do. So I went back to the STAR method, which is the basic, which is using the altitude, the artificial horizon in the middle, and going to each one, and then back to the attitude, back to the another one. So attitude, airspeed, attitude, TC, attitude, DG, attitude, VSI, attitude, then the altitude indicator, then maybe the VOR or the GPS, and then you got the RPM. You have to keep an eye on the RPM, because even though you got a friction lock on the throttle, the speed or the throttle can go up and down. Then you got to worry about the trim, and you got to do all of this without looking outside, and it's just a lot. And if the thing that always stuck with me, if you take any more than 1 second on any one instrument, one of the others go. So if you spend too much time looking at the altitude to see if you're high or low, one of the others is going to go, like the DG, you're going to be off course, or the airspeed is going to be too fast or too slow, or you're going to find out you're turning by looking at the altitude too much. It's so it's so annoying to yourself, because you want to, you know there's a problem, you go to fix it, and once you fix it, there's another problem. Once you go to fix that problem, the previous problem is backed, and you have to go back to fix it. The only way to avoid that is learning to deal with the instrument scan, and less than a second on each. The key to holding altitude and not going up and down so much is having a very light grip on the yoke. If you hold it with a fist or a clasp hand, you're going to have trouble. You have to have a very relaxed grip. And then that was just like night and day for me. As soon as I discovered that, I was able to maintain my altitude better. So those are the little knickknacks. My current CFI, double ISI, some of them of the things that was instructed to me has made a lot of difference, has helped. Everyone has their own little anagrams, like the way I remember the speed limit of under 10,000 feet, 2 angry apes, 288, which is 250 knots, so that's the speed limit underneath. So some of the approaches I learned to use the GPS and the phrase set it and forget it, the way that I was taught is, once we get to the final approach fix, make sure the speed is where it is at. Once it's in the white arc, first notch of flaps, wait for the let me say it again. Once you get to the final approach fix, you wait for the glide slope to come in basically top of the 0. Make sure in the white arc, first notch of flaps, set it and forget it, and then you only need to watch the VOR or the altitude, and then maybe the GPS, and everything else takes care of itself, which mostly is correct. And then the hand trick for the holes, which I discussed, those made everything so much simpler. Some people have been taught to draw out the holes and stuff like that, but if you're looking down or at the alley pad, it takes your attention away from the aircraft or from looking outside, or or the instruments. It's much better to keep your focus ahead of you. So if you have your hand on the compass to tell you the entry for the hold, it's a lot much safer, and it's a lot faster too. I do agree with that. It made a lot of sense. The other thing that I straight out from the start is, like, when you start out, you don't know what your personal minimums are. You get a basic set of personal minimums. But my question was, how do you progress? Like, when I first started, 25 knots speed of airspeed was my limit. If the wind was any faster than that, I wouldn't fly. But as you've seen, I've gone on flights now where the wind was much higher. We got gusts 19, winds of 30 plus. So basically you just go up, take it one step at a time, as long as you're with an instructor or someone safe, and then you can adjust it as is. The second list, the list of minimums I set for myself, most of it I use the flight manual to keep to the clouds and altitude, mainly. So if you fly out of the school that I'm in, you have to keep to those minimums. and they're basically a good minimum. So I decided to use that as my personal minimum. It's not just the flying out of the school planes. The other minimums that I choose is like icing conditions, avoid. If there's any icing conditions, I will not fly. The other minimum is I won't go anywhere across country more than 2 hours until I have my IFR rating, because if I do, there's a potential I could get stuck because of weather, because I won't be able to, as a VFR pilot or private pilot, you can't fly in bad weather through clouds. So there's a potential to get stuck because I won't scud one. So that's why I selected that as my minimum. No trips longer than 2 hours until I'm IFR rated. You're able to establish better what your personal minimums are once you're in the IFR rating, because you know a little bit more. I've been flying at the flying club, so I've done a little bit more flying than the other students at my stage. So it was, the more you're flying, the more experience you get, and more you're able to establish for yourself and answer to yourself what your personal minimums are. Everything paper-wise, I have a backup copy I use for flight, but I am always cautious about using it now, because I know with IFR you can only use it for situational awareness. You can't use it for navigation. So I use it for my checklist, I use it for my documents, I have my POH on there, I have my personal minimums there, and the plates, I have the Geo reference plates, which is the Pro Plus for flight. So that makes doing the approaches so much better and so much more easier to do. So the only other annoyance that I can advise about is the conditions of planes. The planes are going to be the only possible hindrance to most students. If the planes aren't working correctly, then you can't go flying. You can't go into IFR conditions with a bad turn coordinator, because you need that inside of IFR conditions. But you can fly with the TC in knob, as you saw under VFR conditions. But then again, there's just nothing you gotta do. If the plane is down, or if you don't go flying for more than 2 weeks, I have to emphasize the importance of doing chair flying, which I'm bad at. I haven't done that in a long time. If you don't go chair flying, I strongly recommend keep up on the old stuff that I did do. Like, I have the ASA textbook, and I go through all of that. My instructor gave me Pilot's Cafe, which I'll link below. It's a reference sheet of all of the IFR stuff. I've been going through that religiously, daily, weekly, and it helps. I also got the King School stuff. I did that because you get FAA Safety Wings credit for that too. So I did the lessons. I was always on top of it, because there was times it went weeks, 2 or 3 weeks without flying. So I at least wanted to keep up to date on the knowledge. The actual FAA test was no problem at all. Until recently, we didn't know of any testing location around me. The one that I did it before no longer does it. So we thought we might have to go to Kingston or somewhere in Philadelphia to get our test done. But one opened up nearby airport, which made a hell of a difference. So that made the test really easy. I went up to Kingston and for the first attempt, and I was going to do a blog video about it, just record my happenings and everything. But the fact that I had to travel so far, and I was already tired from the traveling, I didn't have my mental game on, and we were told that the hardest test in my school is the instructor's test. But when I got there, the person was like, "Oh no, I get much more failures on the instrument course than anything else." And I'm like, "Great, thanks for that." Putting that in my head while I'm about to take that test, and of course I failed by one question. I was one question off. So I had to go back to my instructor, get more knowledge done, and got signed off. Went to the location that we found right next to us, is in the Visdo building, and I went there perfectly happy, in, out, 15 minutes later, done. So that proves to me that it is all about the mental game. You have to be mentally prepared as well as knowing your stuff. You also have to be on your game. It makes things much more easy if you can just relax. A week before, I went to confirm the appointment to make sure that the place was real, that they had my name, just to give myself a peace of mind that I know where I'm going, I know what time I'm going, I know this place is real, I know this isn't made up because I scheduled it online. I prepared myself ahead of time. Like we do a checklist pre-flight and making sure everything is safe. I did the same process with the testing environment. I made sure I passed, and that made a lot of difference. I wasn't able to do that before because it was like 50-60 miles away. So the game plan and the preparation makes all the difference for the FAA Written. The other good thing about the Part 141 is the stage checks. Now, to my understanding, they don't do that in Part 61. Throughout the course, when you come to the end of each stage, you go up with someone else other than the person who is instructing you. They test you on your knowledge, they go up and test you on your flying skills, and it just gives you a different perspective from someone else that doesn't know you, and they give you other tips that know how to do. It's good because I was above CO, and having someone else that isn't kind of biased. There is a bit of unintentional bias with your instructor because you get to know that person. You spend months teaching and getting taught by them, so they want you to pass, and you pass and reflects good on them, so they're going to push you, but they sometimes they're too kind on the faults, I should say. Then having that other person come in and check and review your work, it always helps. This caused a little bit of a problem because our school only has one CFII right now. So the person who did it was our chief pilot, which caused an interesting problem too, because it was like, this is the chief pilot, this is the boss, this is the person who can make or break you. That got into my head. Like every single time I had to do a stage check, I guess I threw myself off because I was more worried about that than worrying about performing right on the course. And we had to do it on the simulator a number of times. We have an ATD flight simulator at the school, and that simulator is okay for lesson stuff and just practicing. To be tested on that is absolutely hideous because the response on the simulator is nothing like the plane. I try to do a 5-degree turn with the yoke like I would in a plane, and it does a 20 to 30 degree bank in the simulator, and it's not the same, and it's uncomfortable. And the fact is that while I was sitting in the simulator, I was very aware of who was with me and who was next to me compared to whenever I'm in the plane. The fact that I'm so focused on the instruments and flying and all of my attention is talking on the radio and on the plane, I can, to a certain degree, I don't want to say ignore, because I'm listening for their instructions and I respond to them, but the fact is that like I can forget who and what they are and focus on what I'm doing when I'm in the plane. But on the simulator, you don't have that. It's not as busy. It doesn't matter, because my mind is logical. I think logically, and I know, and I've told myself nothing bad can happen here. The worst that can happen here is the computer crashes and I can just hit the reset button and everything's fine. But in the plane you don't have the reset button, so I am more focused on that where I should be. So in a way, I am my own worst enemy doing those stage checks, because in a simulator, because I know this is a simulation, I know this isn't real, and so I know it's not accurate. Doing a very small turn on the yoke does a 20 to 30 degree bank in the simulator, and it's just really hard to do any kind of examination. And then come to the last one, the stage 3 check, there was mistakes that I made during that I would never have done in the plane. I was mainly intimidated that fact that this is the chief pilot. He can ground me, he can allow me to keep going, he can basically chuck me out the course if they want me to. You know, they have the power. So and the fact that they've done the career that I want to do. They're a former airline pilot, and like all of his reputation, or you know, and everything that came about was in my head, and it shouldn't be. And I can't really tell you how to ignore all of that, because you really do need to ignore that. But in a simulator environment, it was really hard to do that. And then this end of course check came, and just because it was a different environment, it worked so much better. Like the oval portion we did on Zoom, and because it was on the computer, I relaxed, because I've done this thousands of times. It was a different environment. I know who I was talking to, but I was more focused on answering the questions. And then when we got into the plane, it was a lot more better. Like I was able to do the turns, I was able to do the approaches. I'll give you an example. Like at the stage 3, he gave me my IFR clearance, and he told me that we're going to East Texas. And instead of putting East Texas in the VOR, I stupidly put Allentown in the airport, and I didn't even load East Texas in the VOR. I didn't ID it, and if it was the real check ride, I would have failed, and it wasn't even 5 minutes. And I would never have done that any other time. It was just the fact that I was nervous and aware of who was sitting next to me, and that kind of put me off my game a little bit. But in the plane, I was like, you know, I was still very aware of who was sitting next to me, but the fact that I was in the plane, I was able to establish and maintain my my composure, and you know, I was able to be command and stay in command. And the way that I know this is because during the flight of the end of course, I was listening to the radio and I heard my call sign while he was talking to me, and I was able to interrupt him, tell him stand by, and I was able to be pilot in command and talk to the ATC on the radio, despite telling me basically telling my chief pilot to shush a minute, like because it's a weird concept. He's the chief pilot, but while I'm in the plane, I'm piloting the command. I have the command, he doesn't, and it's weird telling your boss to shut up, basically. And that's how I know that I'm able to pilot, just not on a simulator, but in the actual plane, I knew I could do it. And it was a confidence builder. Because like knowing that I could pass my mock check ride with him sitting next to me, to my mind, there's nothing worse than being evaluated by your chief pilot. Then a DPE is nothing. I know it's not, but to me, a DPE is a step lower than a chief pilot. So, to me, the fact that I got passed by my chief gives me the confidence that I know that nothing can be worse as the end of course, and everything has come together. So right now I am ready. We did the aqua forms. We did IAQA forms. We're getting ready for the check right now. We did all that we need to. The only thing that was holding me up is these freaking holes here that we're showing. Like, it was annoying because like every time I shut up to a view flight, the get to East Texas, and the first hold, whatever it was, I would screw up the entry, or I would need prompting for the first one, and then after that I knew what we were doing and I can get into the holds and practice and everything was fine. So it was just about getting rid of that first initial one screw up and being right the first time, and getting to do the wing corrections without being prompted, knowing that if you do 20 or 30 degrees to the left on one direction, when you turn around you need to do 20 or 30 to the opposite direction, because the needle is going to go the opposite way from where you're flying. So yeah, I mean, IFR flying is just one of those things. That is the other thing I would say. The overcasters that we had, I'll put pictures on. The ones that I've been using, that you see me use often, is the ASA overcasters that flap down. Those are like cardboard and they have a clip. Those I like really a lot, and I'll put a picture up. They're pretty good and they're pretty reliable, but they're very flimsy cardboard. Two of them have broken from overuse. One just came apart from the actual black clip-ons, and then the other, the cardboard, broke. And the last one, just before my end of course, it just snapped in half. It just totally gave up. So I had to use the blue Jefferson ones. Now I have to absolutely caution you against them, because if you're actually wearing glasses, it will force the metal frames onto your nose and actually hurt your nose. It's painful. They're not well designed. The only other way that you can use them without pain is put the blue things over the glasses, but that risks scratching the lenses. And I think this is like the 4th or 5th time that I used them. I just went flying this Saturday after my end of course, and the thing just broke off because it was held together by a very tiny screw. The Jefferson ones I would absolutely do not recommend. I would tell them to stay away from, because it causes more pain than they are useful, and it's just not good. And it's only my 4th time I've used this item and it's broken, while the ASA ones are good and stay working. The only bad thing about the ASA ones that I would say is the size are different lengths, so you can use your peripheral vision out the right hand side to look at the garment and look at your instructor. But and on the left one, it's thicker, so you can't see out the window. The problem with that is, if you're sitting on the instructor side and using them, the wrong side is blinked out. You need the ASA overcasters, so the thick side is on the right hand side, and the thin piece is on the left, so you can see the person to you and not out the window. Besides that, the ASA ones are so much better. For anyone wearing glasses, those are much better overcasters. And that is another thing, seeing this part of the video now, that reminded me, the sun causes, or flying with the sun glare low to the horizon, it basically causes IFR conditions anyway, because you can't see outside the window because the sun blinds you, so you have to look at the instruments, and it does cause partial panel. The video that I did showing that video glare, it's so real, because like no one tells you, people just expect you to overcome it and deal with it as you do. But it was kind of a surprise how much of a problem it was. Yeah, but it was good. Like, I've been doing the approaches and trying to get the needles to stay in the center. They would go left to the right a notch, or a dot up left to the right and a dot up above, but recently it's just like everything's coming together. Both the needles are staying in the middle and staying in the middle, and I only need very minor corrections, and able to maintain attitude, like it's all coming together.
What's it say?
Well, it says, I love it when a plan comes together.
And the speeds, like being able to fly with winds gusting 19, 20 or whatever it was just like, yeah, I got this. There's nothing to worry about anymore. Like, I was realizing that I had become used to the hood or the overcasters. I don't care about having them on. I don't need to look outside. I don't need to see outside. They're just there. The instruments, looking at the instruments can keep you alive, and they will keep you alive. And even with those two covered up, the Attitude and DG, I can still fly with them. And I found out for real how important covering those two are, because I did my initial checkout for the Warrior, for the flying club, and the vacuum pump actually failed, and I actually got to see for myself what happens to those two instruments. They give false readings. They show you straight and level when I'm doing a 20 bank turn, or it shows the thing that I'm in a turn when I'm a straight and level. It's really hard to ignore the fake or false readings. So the only thing that you can do is just covering them up. And I didn't have anything to cover up at that time. I mean, we didn't declare an emergency because we're still doing the check ride, and it was daylight and we could see everything, and it was just, we just carried on. We finished doing the pattern work at the time. We just did the pattern work and we landed. Did all we needed to do to be able to pass the checkout of the plane. But yeah, it is really important that you cover up those instruments when the vacuum pump fails. Yeah. I still have that bug. I want to go in clouds. I want to do actual IFR still. But actually getting that 3 minutes of IFR time, real IFR, was fun. Yeah, it's coming to that point of your training where everything comes together, and you see that you've learned it and you're able to do it and keep doing it. Okay, well, I think I've talked long enough. This video goes on for an hour and I don't even land. That new camera when I set it for 2.7K, it only records for 8 minutes and 50 seconds per segment. That's how long the clips are. So instead of 17 minutes. So you get less time when you set it to record at 2K or 4K. But I do like it. I really do like it's, I know it's hard to see on the videos, but when we go down south or fly around at Allentown and just look towards the horizon, and we can see clear as day the Manhattan skyline, and if you look to your right, it's the Philadelphia High, right? And if you look behind us, sometimes you can see Pittsburgh, but not always. Like, it's so bizarre. All the way from, we were flying all the way from Allentown, and we were still able to see New York, Philly, and Pittsburgh at the same time. Alright. So I think me going around in circles here is enough. Yeah, that's... Yeah, I remember that. Like, that was weird to me. Like, the controllers were only they asked us to only report. They got annoyed because when we did the holds, part of that, they'll ask us to talk, turn, twist, time, throttle, talk. You're supposed to tell them that you're establishing the hold, and the person at the time was like, only report established when asked to do so. And so from then on, I've refrained from calling out on station or on establishing the hold unless they asked us to. I guess because Allentown is a busy airport, there's a lot of traffic, so. But it was just like, so that's why I don't always do it. And on clearance, when you try to get clearance before you start, they sometimes ask you for the radio that you're gonna hold on. So I always ask what radio in case they ask us. A lot of new things I learned. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the cross countries from the commercial. The commercial course I'm going to be starting straight away, and then like tons of cross countries. But hopefully I can get I can go somewhere. I'm waiting for my tax return, and then hopefully get the wire before it gets sold, and then go flying somewhere. I was thinking of Portsmouth, New Hampshire. They have a good burger restaurant there that I wanted to try out. I have a whole list of states that I want to go by. If you haven't seen on my little e-portfolio site, there's a checklist of all the states I've visited, flown through, or states I haven't got touched yet. I wanted to go to Dez County in North Carolina. I do have a plan to go to Ohio to meet Verdictsquadnow. I owe him because he helped pay for my course for a little bit. He donated money and along the way helped and encouraged me. He's a friend that I've known quite a while for many years. He's a streamer, a Twitch streamer, and a YouTube streamer. Verdictsquadnow. So I told him if he helped out, I'll give him a flight for free anywhere he wants to go. So it's time I honored that deal. So yeah, I got my first class medical. I had to do that this week. Well, you know, I think that's going to be where I'm going to end it. There is just only so much you're going to be interested in. I could talk through all of this video, but even now I've had enough. I don't know, we got like 10 minutes before the video ends. It's 44 minutes right now. Yeah, the person who did my medical, he's very generous. the first time I did my medical, I was gonna go for a first class, but I couldn't afford it because it was expensive. So I decided to go for my third, for a second, but I couldn't afford that. So I went to a third, and so I did the examination for third class, and I received a second class medical. It was nice of him. And then this time again, it was just like in and out. The medical was nice and easy. You get everything checked. Psych evals, everything done, checked. So you know you're good every year. So now all I'm doing, or what I am focusing on, I'm currently doing airline operations, which is basically a course on the difference between Part 121 and Part 135, which I'm kind of leaning towards 135. And then I've just got to get my commercial done, which hopefully I'm going to by the end of the year. And then if I choose to stay with the college, I've got to do my CFI course, become an instructor. I'm really in two minds on that, because like I really don't think I'm going to be a good instructor, but I want my degree. They don't have a multi-engine plane, so your only course is to go somewhere else and pay for it yourself, which I can't do. Get a Part 135 job or another job and pay for it, and then I would be able to get it, or do the CFI job. Once you get your CFI ground done and pass the CFI check right, you get the degree and graduate. But I've been applying to like so many different Part 135 jobs. Just I want to get my foot in the door. Even if I get like tons of no's and stuff like that, I want them to know who I am and send my resume out to places. The one airline I'm interested in is Southern Airways Express. They are the parent company of Honolulu Airlines, Milwaukee. The YouTuber Sway Martin, he went to Hawaii and flew with their child company. The Southern Airways Express is the parent company of that company that he flew for. They fly around Pittsburgh and go down to Florida, sometimes to Bahamas too. They have a lot of good flights. They have a lot of good pilot stuff like that. I may get used to flying their Cessnas. I am solidly a low-wing pilot, but I absolutely hate the C-152s. I hate them. I'm gonna hold off hating any of the others because I haven't been in them. One of the more advanced planes that we have is in a Cessna 172, which is slightly bigger. And then they have a Mooney, a complex aircraft, which I want to try for one of my cross countries. A Mooney MJ-20 from the 1960s. It looks like a really nice plane, so. So yeah, I think for the cross countries, I think Dez County is really going to be where I want to go in North Carolina. The reason why I want to go there is because during one of my vacations to France, I think with my parents, we went to Brest. There's a submarine museum, and there was some sort of artifact from America, from Dez County, that the submarines at the time picked up. So it's like going to the other end of the puzzle. The other piece of the puzzle was the Des County, where that piece of wreckage or whatever it was, the artifact that the sub picked up. Because if you didn't know, the Des County is where the Cessnas, the submarine spoilers, took off from, and flew out. And there was only like one plane that didn't come back, that got shot down. So it's kind of, it'd be kind of strange for me going to that. So yeah, Portsmouth, New Hampshire, Ohio, and then down to Des County, North Carolina, and I'll have to see where else I want to go for my cross countries. Yeah, we're pushing the end of the video. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and stop here. If you like these videos, pilot commentaries, I'll do more. Let me know in the comments. Basically, this is gonna be a test one. I'll post this up like on Wednesday or something, and then see how we go. I go flying again on Tuesday, this Tuesday, so I may use the video from that flight for the weekend. We'll see. I'll see what's gonna happen. Okay. I guess. Thank you very much for watching.
How we told the line, push it every time. My mind compromise from how you say my name. I see those bright blue eyes, and I want you tied up in my bed with my name carved deep into your chest. Harmless games went to my head. Now I want you breathing down my neck like an animal. I want you to myself, come on, take control. Yeah, can you hold me down, smooth criminal? Yeah, you're rushing through my veins, got me going out insane. I'm feeling like an animal.